The prison yard was silent. Not the kind of silence that felt calm. This was heavy, cold, and full of fear. Every sound carried far, the creak of metal, the low hum of power rifles. The slow steps of guards walking in perfect lines. Rows of prisoners stood in chains. Their clothes were torn, their faces pale. Many had stopped looking around. They stared at the ground, as if they had already accepted their fate. The air smelled of oil, rust, and something sharper, the smell of blood that had dried long. A godot above the yard, high on a platform, sat the alien judge. His skin was a dull gray, like stone. His eyes were narrow, and his hands rested on the arms of a black metal chair. Behind him, banners of the Empire waved slowly in the wind. This was his stage. He enjoyed being the one to decide who lived and who died. The executions would begin in minutes. In the line of prisoners, one figure stood out. He was human. Broad shoulders, steady eyes, and a calm face. Too calm for someone about to die. Unlike the others, he wasn't trembling. He didn't speak, didn't beg, didn't look away. The guards kept glancing at him, uneasy. No one knew his name. No one knew how he had been captured. All they knew was that he had been here only 3 weeks. But his presence made the guards nervous. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard. The shadows made the chains on the prisoners' ankles look longer, heavier. A bell rang once. All eyes turned toward the judge. He stood, his voice echoing across the yard. Today, the judge announced, justice is served. These enemies of the Empire will be erased. The guards stepped forward. Their rifles glowed faint blue at the tips. The first prisoner in line closed his eyes. Somewhere in the crowd, someone sobbed, and then a small voice broke the silence. Wait. Every head turned. At the far edge of the yard, a tiny figure was being pushed through the gate. She was an alien child, no older than 8. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes bright yellow like molten gold. Her clothes were too big for her small frame, and one sleeve was torn. She walked slowly, guided by 2 guards holding her by the arms. The judge frowned. Who is this? One guard answered, a witness, my lord. She insists on speaking. The judge waved them closer. The little girl was trembling, but her eyes scanned the line of prisoners. She seemed to be searching for someone. The prisoners shifted uncomfortably. None of them knew her. Then her gaze stopped. Her golden eyes locked onto the human. She lifted her small hand and pointed. Him, she said. The yard went still. Even. The wind seemed to pause. The human didn't move. His eyes met hers, calm but questioning. The guards looked at each other, confused. The judge leaned forward. Why him? The girl's voice was quiet, but it carried. Because he is the only one who can stop this. A ripple of laughter came from some of the guards. One even smirked. A child's fantasy, he muttered. But the judge didn't laugh. His eyes narrowed. The human's calm face had not changed, but there was something in his eyes now. A flicker of recognition, or maybe surprise. The judge stepped down from his platform and walked slowly toward the human. Do you know this girl? No, the human said, his voice low but steady. Then why does she choose you? The human didn't answer. He just kept looking at the girl. She was still pointing, her small arms shaking, but she didn't look. Away, the silence grew heavy again. The other prisoners watched, unsure whether to hope or fear what was happening. Finally, the judge spoke. Very well, the executions will wait. The guards looked shocked. Delays were rare. Orders were usually carried out without pause. Bring the human to the interrogation cell, the judge ordered. Then, after a moment, he added, and bring the girl too. Chains clinked as the human was pulled out of the line. The other prisoners whispered to each other. Some thought the girl had saved him. Others thought she had just sealed his fate. The girl was led after him. She glanced once at the line of prisoners, her golden eyes full of something the others could not name. Not fear, not hope, but determination. The heavy doors closed behind them, leaving the rest of the yard in silence once more. But that silence was different now. It carried questions. Why had the girl chosen him? And why had the human not denied her? The cell was small, cold, and built of black metal that seemed to swallow light. A single dim lamp hung from the ceiling, swinging slightly as if it, too, was afraid to stay still. The human sat on a metal bench, his hands bound with thick energy cuffs that hummed softly. Outside the barred door, 2 guards stood like statues. Their faces were hidden behind black helmets, but their eyes cold and sharp watched every move he made. Through the wall, faint voices could be heard. It was the girl. She was in the next cell, speaking to someone. Her words were muffled, but every now and then her voice would rise, and the human could catch pieces of her speech. Told you. Only him, you don't understand. He leaned back against the wall, listening. The door to his cell hissed open. The alien judge stepped inside, his long robe dragging across the floor. The guards followed, stopping just inside. The door you have caused. An interruption, the judge said, his voice slow and dangerous. The executions were ready. Then the child spoke. Now the crowd waits for answers. The human said nothing. His eyes stayed on the judge, calm and unblinking. The judge's lip curled. Who are you? Why did she choose you? I don't know, the human replied. A long silence hung in the air. The judge studied him as if trying to pull the truth from his mind. Finally, the judge turned toward the guards. Bring her in. Moments later, the door to the next cell opened, and the little alien girl was brought in. She looked smaller now, her silver skin pale under the dim light, but her golden eyes were still bright. She stood between the guards, her small hands clenched into fists. The judge gestured toward her. Tell me, child, why this human? The girl looked up at him, then turned to the human. Because he is the only one who can stop what is coming. The judge's voice grew cold. Nonsense. He is a prisoner, same as the rest. He is weak, helpless. The girl shook her head. No, you don't see it, but I do. He is like the one from the stories. The human's brow tightened. Stories? She nodded quickly. My mother told me before she was taken. A human warrior came to our world long ago. He fought against the Empire. He saved many. If the Empire ever returned, another human would come, and when I saw you, I knew. The judge laughed, but there was no humor in it. A child's fairy tale. You risk your life for a ghost. It's not a ghost, the girl said firmly. It's a promise. The judge stepped closer to the human, his voice low. If I believed her, I might keep you alive. But I do not. Still, I have a problem. The crowd outside heard her words. If I kill you now, some may start to whisper. And I do not like whispers. He paced slowly, his robe brushing the floor. Perhaps there is a use for you both. Perhaps. You can help me find what was stolen. The human said nothing. A relic, the judge continued. An artifact taken from the vault 2 nights ago. My guards search, but they find nothing. If I do not recover it soon, the Empire will demand answers. Find it for me, and I will let you live. Refuse, and both you and the girl will die at dawn. The girl looked at the human, her golden eyes wide. She didn't speak. But the message in her gaze was clear. She wanted him to agree. The human studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to the judge. And if I find it, you let her go too. The judge's smile was thin and sharp. Both of you will be free. It was a lie. The human could hear it in his voice. But sometimes lies could be used as weapons. "Fine," he said. "I'll find it." The judge's smile grew. "Good. You leave at first light." The guard stepped forward, unlocking the energy cuffs from his wrists. The weight lifted, but the hum of the cuffs still rang in his ears. As they led him back to his cell, the girl was pulled in the opposite direction. She glanced back at him, her lips pressing together. Before the door closed between them, she whispered something he barely heard. "You are him." That night, the human didn't sleep. He sat on the cold bench, his mind turning. He didn't believe in her story about a promised warrior, but he believed she believed it. And belief could be powerful. When dawn came, the gates of the prison yard opened. The human stepped out, chains still on his ankles, but his hands free. The girl walked beside him, a guard on each side. Ahead, the alien city stretched wide, its towers sharp against the pale morning sky. The judge watched from the balcony, his smile hidden behind his hands. He didn't expect them to return, but the human was already planning something the judge couldn't see coming. The alien city was waking up as they stepped out of the prison gates. Pale light touched the tall towers, their silver walls catching the first rays of the sun. The streets were narrow near the prison, but beyond them lay wide roads lined with stalls, workshops, and dark alleys. The human walked with slow, careful steps. The chains on his ankles were short, forcing him to take smaller strides. Two guards followed close behind, rifles ready. The little girl kept pace beside him. She didn't speak, but her eyes darted left and right, as if memorizing every corner they passed. They moved deeper into the city. Creatures of all shapes and sizes went about their mourning. Some looked at the human with open hatred, others with fear, and some with curiosity. He ignored them all, keeping his focus on the road ahead. Finally, when the guards slowed to adjust their rifles, the girl whispered without turning her head, "Do you know why they took the relic?" The human shook his head slightly. "Tell me. It holds memories," she whispered. "Not like your mind. Real memories, recorded from the past. My people say it has the truth about the Great Purge." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "And the Great Purge is?" She glanced at the guards before answering. "When the Empire destroyed my homeworld, they called it a war. It wasn't. It was slaughter. The relic holds proof." The human's jaw tightened. He had heard of events like this, planets wiped out under the excuse of peacekeeping. But hearing it from her made it different. They turned into a crowded market. The air was thick with the smell of spices, cooked meat, and engine oil. Voices shouted over one another, selling food, tools, and strange glowing stones. The guards pushed through, forcing a path. The girl leaned closer to him. "I know where." "It might be, but we can't let them follow." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied the crowd. Then, as they passed a stall piled with metal scraps, he stumbled forward, bumping into a table. The metal clattered to the ground, spilling into the path. The sudden noise startled a group of shoppers. People stepped back, shouting, in the chaos. The human grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her into a side alley. By the time the guards noticed, they were gone. The alley was narrow and dark, its walls covered in old posters and strange symbols painted in red. The girl led the way, her small feet quick and sure. They took turns so sharp the human almost slipped. Finally, they stopped in front of a rusted door half hidden behind a pile of crates. She knocked twice, paused, then knocked 3 more times. The door creaked open. A wrinkled alien with one milky eye peered out. "You shouldn't be here," he growled. The girl stepped forward. "We need to see it." The alien's gaze moved to the human. "And who is this?" "The one I told you about," she said simply. The old alien stared at the human for a long moment before stepping aside. "Come in." Inside, the room was dim, lit by a single lantern. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with old weapons, books, and pieces of broken machines. The air smelled of dust and oil. In the center of the room, on a small table, sat a black metal box, no larger than a loaf of bread. It pulsed faintly with blue light. The girl pointed. "That's it. The relic." The human stepped closer. Up close. He could hear a soft hum coming from the box, almost like a heartbeat. The old alien moved between them and the table. "It's dangerous to have this. The judge will kill anyone caught with it." "He'll kill us anyway," the human said. The old alien studied him. "You speak like someone who's seen the Empire's lies before." "I have," the human replied. His eyes stayed on the relic. "What's inside?" "Memories," the old alien said. "Images, voices, the truth they try to erase. This one contains records from the day of the purge. If it gets out, the Empire's hands will be exposed." The girl's voice was urgent. "We have to take it to the humans. They can send it everywhere." The old alien hesitated. "If you take it, you can't come back here, and they will chase you to the ends of the galaxy." The human looked at the girl. Her golden eyes were steady. "We'll take it," he said. The old alien gave a slow nod, then carefully lifted the relic and placed it in the human's hands. The box felt heavier than it looked. Before they could move, a loud bang shook the door. Voices shouted outside. The guards had found them. The old alien's face darkened. "Go. Back door. Now." The girl grabbed the human's arm, pulling him toward a narrow hallway. They slipped through a small exit into the maze of alleys again. Behind them, the sound of the front door breaking open filled the air as they ran. The human tightened his grip on the relic. He knew now that this wasn't just about saving a little girl. This was about something far bigger and far more dangerous than he had imagined. And the judge would stop at nothing to get it back. The alleys twisted like a nest of snakes. Every corner looked the same. Narrow walls, dripping pipes, flickering lights. The human ran ahead, his steps quick despite the ankle chains. The girl kept close, breathing fast but not complaining. In his right hand, he held the relic tight. Against his chest, behind them, shouts echoed. The guards were spreading out. Boots pounded on the metal streets. They ducked under a low archway and found themselves in a quiet lane lined with small, shuttered shops. The girl stopped to catch her breath. "They're everywhere," she whispered. The human glanced around, scanning the shadows. "We can't keep running in circles," he said. "We need a way out of the city." Before she could answer, a soft hum cut through the air. A black hovercraft slid into the lane, stopping just a few feet away. Its door opened slowly. Inside sat the alien judge. The human's eyes narrowed. The girl's hand tightened on his sleeve. "Get in," the judge said calmly. The human didn't move. "Why?" "Because," the judge replied, "I am offering you something." The human almost laughed. "You mean like the last offer? To work for you or die?" The judge's lips curled in a small smile. "You misunderstand me, human. This time, I am giving you a choice that benefits both of us." He gestured at the seat across from him. "Sit, listen, then decide." The girl looked up at the human, uncertain. He didn't like this, but being out in the open was worse. Slowly, he stepped forward, pulling the girl in with him. The hovercraft's door closed, sealing them inside. The hum of the engine was smooth, the air cool and still. The judge leaned back, studying them. "You have something that belongs to me." The human's grip on the relic tightened, and the judge continued, "If you give it to me now, I will not only let you live, I will let the girl live too. You may even leave this city together." The human's eyes stayed on the judge. You expect me to believe that? The judge spread his hands. I expect you to understand reality. The relic is dangerous, not just to me, but to you. It contains truths that will bring the Empire's wrath upon anyone who holds it. Do you think the humans will save you? They will use you, and then? They will leave you behind. The girl's voice broke the silence. He's lying. The judge looked at her with a faint smile. Children are so certain. But you do not know the cost of war, little one. The human spoke again, his tone sharp. Why keep us alive at all? You could have killed us already. Because, the judge said softly, I have seen men like you before. Fighters, survivors, and I know how to use them. Return the relic. Work for me, and I will give you freedom within my rule. You will never need to fear the Empire again. The human stared at him for a long moment. Then he said, No. The judge's smile faded. You've already lost. The human continued. Because if you're making offers, it means you don't have the power to take it by force. The hovercraft stopped. The door slid open. Very well, the judge said. Run. But remember this, when you are cornered, I will be waiting. The human stepped out with the girl. The door closed, and the craft rose silently into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. The girl let out a shaky breath. Why didn't he just kill us? Because he still thinks he can control the ending, the human said. He's wrong. They moved quickly now, avoiding the main streets. The human's mind was working fast. The judge's sudden change of tone meant the relic was more important than he had guessed. At the far edge of the city, they reached a row of storage docks. Old ships were moored here, most of them broken, their hulls rusted and patched with scrap metal. The air smelled of fuel and salt from the nearby sea. The girl pointed at a squat, battered transport ship. That one works. My uncle used it before the soldiers took him. They climbed aboard. Inside, the air was stale, but the controls looked functional. The human set the relic on the console and began checking the systems. Before he could finish, a voice came from behind them. Step away from the controls. They turned. 3 bounty hunters stood in the doorway, weapons drawn. Their armor was mismatched, their faces scarred. The leader grinned. We're here for the box. The human didn't answer. His eyes flicked to the girl. Slowly, he stepped forward, placing himself between her and the hunters. One of the hunters laughed. You think you can fight us with your hands? The human smiled faintly. Not with my hands. Then he moved fast. He grabbed a loose metal bar from the floor and swung it, catching the first hunter in the chest. The second fired, but the human rolled aside, the blast hitting the wall. He was on his feet in an instant, striking again. His movements sharp and precise. The girl ducked behind the console, clutching the relic. The last hunter lunged toward her, but the human caught him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. Seconds later, it was over. The hunters lay groaning on the floor. The human looked at the girl. We have to move now. She nodded, her eyes wide but full of trust. The transport's engines roared to life. As they lifted off the dock, the city fell away below them. But in the distance, dark shapes were already rising into the sky. The judge's ships were coming. The transport ship rattled as it climbed through the gray morning sky. The engines coughed like an old animal, struggling to keep up. The human sat at the controls, hands steady, eyes scanning the readings. Beside him, the girl clutched the relic, holding it like a living thing. Behind them, the city was shrinking, but the danger wasn't. Dark shapes moved in the distance, 3 sleek hunter crafts. Black as shadow, cutting through the air like knives. They're following, the girl whispered. I know, the human said. His voice was calm, but his mind was already running through possible routes. There weren't many the hunter crafts spread out. one taking the high position to closing from the sides. They were herding him toward the east, away from the open sea and toward the old industrial zone. They want us to go that way, the human muttered. Why? Because it's a trap. He didn't slow. Instead, he pushed the ship harder, letting the hunters think they were winning. The engines groaned under the strain. Minutes later, they reached the edge of the industrial zone, a forest of broken towers, giant smokestacks, and collapsed bridges. Steam hissed from cracked pipes. The air shimmered with heat from deep vents. In the ground, the hunters closed in. Blue energy beams flashed past the transport's hull, scorching the metal. The girl gripped the seat. We can't fight them, can we? Not here, the human said. But we can make them regret chasing us. He dove the ship lower, weaving between tall smokestacks. Rusted cranes loomed overhead, their chains swaying in the wind. The hunters followed. But their sleek designs made them less flexible in the narrow spaces. One tried to cut him off, swooping low. The humans spun the transport sharply, scraping the side but slipping past. The hunter clipped a crane's hook, sending sparks into the air. The girl gasped as another hunter fired. The beam passing so close it burned the edge of her seat. Hold. On the human said he spotted an old refinery tower ahead. Its base was shattered. But the top still held massive fuel tanks. If they could time it right. The human pulled the ship into a steep climb, drawing the hunters higher. At the last second, he cut power and dropped. The hunters overshot, firing wildly. One shot struck a rusted fuel line. The explosion was instant. A ball of fire rolled into the sky, swallowing one of the hunter crafts in flames. The shockwave rocked the transport. The girl cried out, but the human kept control, steering through. The debris, that's one gone, he said. The two remaining hunters regrouped. Now they were angry. Their shots came faster, closer. The human knew they couldn't keep this up forever. They'll try to force us down, he said. We need to get to the outer ridge. What's there? An old tunnel system. If we reach it, they can't follow inside. The hunters chased them toward the ridge, but the human was ready. At the last turn before the open sky, he cut sharply into a narrow canyon. The walls rose high on both sides, jagged and close. This is too tight, the girl warned. Exactly, the human replied. The hunters followed, but their larger wings scraped the canyon walls. Sparks flew. One slammed into the rock, spiraling down in a cloud of dust. Now only one remained. The canyon ended abruptly at a gaping hole in the ground. The entrance to the old tunnels, the human dove straight in. The hunter hesitated for a second, then followed. Inside, the darkness swallowed them. The walls were close, the turns sudden. The human killed the ship's external lights, flying only by the dim glow of the instruments. The hunter behind them fired, but the shots hit the walls instead, bringing down chunks of stone. The human twisted through a series of tight curves, then suddenly dove downward. The tunnel split into two paths. He took the lower one without slowing. The hunter chose the upper path. Seconds later, a deep rumble shook the tunnels. Rocks collapsed, sealing the upper route. The human let out a slow breath. We're clear. For now. The girl leaned back, her hands still gripping the relic. You've done this before? She said quietly. Something like it, he replied. They flew deeper into the tunnels until they reached a wide chamber where they could rest for a moment. The air was damp and smelled of stone. Faint water dripped from somewhere high above. The human checked the ship for damage. Several scorches, a cracked stabilizer, and low fuel. They couldn't stay here long. The girl finally loosened her grip on the relic. If they want this so badly, she said, then it must mean the truth inside is even worse than we think. The human met her gaze. It means the truth can destroy them. For a moment, they sat in silence, the hum of the ship the only sound. But in that silence, the human felt something shift. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about making sure the relic's truth reached the galaxy. And no matter how many hunters the judge sent, they weren't going to give it. Back the tunnel chamber was quiet, except for the slow drip of water and the soft hum of the transport's engine. The air was damp, heavy, and smelled of stone. The human sat in the pilot's chair, turning the small black relic over in his hands. Its surface was smooth, almost cold, but faint blue light pulsed from its center like a slow heartbeat. The girl sat across from him, hugging her knees. Her golden eyes stayed fixed on the relic. "Do you know how to open it?" she asked. The human shook his head. "But I've seen tech like this before. It's not locked with a code. It's locked with a person." Her brows drew together. A person. Memory devices like this can be sealed to one mind, one set of brain patterns. Without the right person, it stays shut forever. The girl hesitated, then whispered, "I think it's me." He looked at her sharply. "Why would it be you?" "My mother," she said softly. "She used to work in the archives before the purge. She told me once that I carried the key inside my head. I thought she was speaking in riddles, but now I think she meant this." The human studied her for a long moment, then placed the relic gently in front of her. "If you're right, this might show us why the judge wants it so badly." She took a deep breath, reached out, and pressed her small hands to the smooth black surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blue light grew brighter, spreading in lines across the surface like veins. A faint chime echoed in the chamber. Suddenly, the air above the relic shimmered. A projection flickered to life, hazy at first. Then clear, it was a battlefield. The human leaned forward, his jaw tightening. He saw burning cities, skies black with smoke, and soldiers in the judge's colors firing into crowds of unarmed civilians. Screams filled the projection. The girl's hands trembled. "That's my home," she whispered. The scene shifted. Now it showed the judge himself, younger but unmistakable, giving orders to destroy ships trying to escape. His voice was clear. "Leave no survivors. Erase every record." The human's hands curled into fists. This wasn't just evidence. This was a confession, recorded in his own words. The projection kept showing more mass graves, children hiding in rubble, soldiers taking prisoners. It was worse than the human had imagined. The Empire had called it a war. It was a massacre. Finally, the image faded. The relic's blue light dimmed again, returning to its slow heartbeat. The girl wiped her eyes. "Now you see why we can't give it back." The human nodded slowly. This would destroy him. Maybe even shake the whole empire. She looked at him, her voice small but firm. "Then we have to get it to your people." He leaned back, thinking. The nearest human outpost is 3 systems away. With this ship, we'd never make it through their patrols. Then what do we do? The human glanced at the relic. "We don't run, we send it." She tilted her head. "Send it. There's an old comm array in the mountains beyond this tunnel system. If it still works, we can broadcast this too. The human fleet and to every free world in range." Our eyes widened. Everyone would see it. He nodded. "And once it's out, the judge can't hide anymore." The plan was dangerous. The comm array was in open terrain, and once they left the tunnels, they would be easy to track. But there was no other choice. Before they could move, a faint metallic clang echoed through the tunnel. The human froze. That sound wasn't part of the ship. Another clang, closer this time. The girl's voice was barely a whisper. "They found us. The human was already moving. He grabbed the relic, stowed it in a satchel, and fired up the engines. The chamber filled with a roar of power as the transport lifted off the ground. From the darkness behind them, lights appeared. Cold white beams cutting through the tunnel. Small, fast crafts, perfect for underground pursuit. The girl strapped herself in as the human threw the ship forward, weaving through the winding tunnels. The enemy ships followed close, their engines screaming in the confined space. He took a sharp turn, the walls rushing past just inches from the hull. Sparks flew as one enemy craft scraped the stone. Another tried to cut him off, but he dove under a low arch, leaving them behind for a moment. "Hold on." He shouted. The tunnel ahead sloped upward. A faint glimmer of daylight showed at the end. The human pushed the engines to their limit. They burst out into open air. The sudden light, blinding after the darkness. The mountains stretched before them, jagged and snow-capped. Somewhere among them was the old Array. The girl looked back. They're still coming. The human's eyes narrowed. Then we make them chase us on our terms. He banked the ship toward the tallest peak, disappearing into a narrow pass. The wind howled around them, snow whipping across the view. The enemy ships followed, but the human was already planning the next move. A trap only these mountains could provide. He glanced at the girl. "No matter what happens, don't let go of that relic." She clutched it tighter. "I won't." The snowstorm thickened, hiding them for a moment. But the human knew the judge's forces wouldn't stop. Not now. Not until they had the relic back, or until they were both dead. And as the wind roared around them, he also knew something else. This fight wasn't just for the girl anymore. 'Twas for every voice silenced by the Empire. The snowstorm swallowed the transport ship, wrapping it in a white blur. Wind battered the hull, ice clung to the windows, and the engines groaned in protest. The human gripped the controls tightly, guiding the ship between jagged peaks. The girl sat beside him, holding the relic close under her coat to keep it warm and dry. "They're still behind us," she said, glancing at the radar. 3 red dots moved closer with each passing minute. "They'll be right on us before we reach the Array," the human replied. His voice was calm, but his mind was sharp and focused. "We'll have to buy time." The mountains opened suddenly into a narrow valley. At the far end, high on a frozen cliff, stood the old Array. Its spire was bent, its panels cracked, but the signal dish was still intact. A faint red light blinked at its base, a sign that some power remained. "That's it," the girl said. The human's eyes stayed on the radar. "We get one chance. Once we start broadcasting, they'll throw everything at us." Snow whipped past as the transport descended toward the array. The landing gear groaned as it touched the frozen ground. They stepped out into the biting cold, their boots sinking into the snow. The human carried a small transmitter from the ship. The girl clutched the relic. They reached the base of the array. The human found the control panel half buried in snow and ice. He brushed it clean and connected the transmitter. The screen flickered to life, faint but functional. "Give it to me," he said. The girl placed the relic in his hands. Its blue light pulsed faster, as if it knew the moment had come. The human slotted it into the transmitter's data port. Instantly, the screen lit up with the recording they had seen in the tunnels, the burning cities, the slaughter, the judge giving his deadly orders. The file was ready to send. "Once I hit this," the human said, "the signal goes out to every open channel. Civilian, military, pirate, doesn't matter. Everyone will see it." The girl nodded. "Do it." He pressed the button. The progress bar began to fill, slow and steady. That was when the first blast hit. The snow exploded nearby, throwing ice into the air. The judge's hunter crafts roared into the valley, their weapons glowing. "They found us. The girl shouted. The human pulled his pistol and fired at the closest craft, forcing it to veer away. Keep your head down. Don't let them near the relic. One craft landed and soldiers poured out, their black armor gleaming against the snow. The human moved fast, using the Kumaray's base as cover. His shots were precise, each one. Buying a few more seconds, the progress bar reached 40%. The girl ducked behind a support beam, her arms wrapped around the relic as blasts of energy tore into the snow around her. The wind howled, carrying the distant roar of engines. More ships were coming. The human reloaded, his movements quick. He dropped 2 soldiers, but more took their place. A blast grazed his shoulder, burning through his jacket. He gritted his teeth and kept firing. 60%, a shadow fell over the snow. The judge's personal craft descended, sleek and dark, landing just beyond the soldiers. The ramp dropped, and the judge stepped out, his robes whipping in the wind. "End this now, human," the judge called, his voice carrying over the storm. "Give me the relic, and I will spare the girl." The human didn't answer. "You think? This will destroy me." The judge continued. "The Empire will crush you before the day is over." The girl's voice rang out, small but clear. "Not if everyone sees the truth." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Child, you don't understand the cost." 80%. The soldiers pushed forward again. The human fought them off, but the judge was moving closer. In the chaos, the girl slipped out from behind the beam, running toward the transmitter. She pressed herself against it, shielding it with her own body. "Keep going," she shouted. The judge raised his hand, signaling a soldier to fire. The human moved instantly, stepping in front of her. The blast struck his side, knocking him to the ground. For a moment, the world went quiet except for the wind. The girl knelt beside him, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't stop," he said through clenched teeth. "It's almost done. 95%. The judge stepped closer, his shadow falling over them. "You can still live, human. All you have to do is the progress bar hit 100%. A sharp tone cut through the air. The transmission sent across every channel and range the images of the purge, the judge's orders, the screams of the innocent. All of it was now in the hands of millions. The judge froze. His face went pale with rage. Around them, some of his soldiers hesitated, their eyes flicking to each other as if unsure whether to keep fighting. The human forced himself to his feet, blood staining the snow. "It's over," he said. The judge's lips curled. "Not yet." But before he could give the order, the distant roar of engines filled the sky again. This time, they were not the judges. Sleek human warships broke through the clouds, their cannons already charged. The judge's soldiers scattered. The hunter crafts lifted off, fleeing into the storm. The judge backed toward his ship, his eyes burning with fury. "This isn't finished," he spat before disappearing inside. His craft rose into the sky and vanished into the clouds. The human swayed, but the girl caught his arm. "You did it," she whispered. "No," he said, looking at her. "We did." Above them, the human fleet hovered like silent guardians. The storm began to break, light spilling across the mountains, and for the first time since the prison yard. The girl smiled, not the smile of a child saved, but the smile of someone who knew the galaxy had changed.